Okay, it's so wonderful to see some familiar faces. I can see some familiar faces, but I can also see some new faces. So who's here for the very first time? Raise your hands. Oh, we have a few. We have a few. That's really nice. Who's been here before? Ah, that's even more wonderful. And I'm really grateful that you've come here because, you know, I often find that the Brahma Kumaris is not an organization, but more of a family. Do you feel that? You feel that you've come to a family gathering, not just some sort of a XYZ organization trying to shove something down your throats? No, this is a family. And so in a family, very relaxed, very easygoing. Okay. So, for those who are new, I'm just giving you a little intro about the Brahma Kumaris, and you can find more about it, the Brahma Kumaris, on our website. The Brahma Kumaris is a network of 9,000 centers spread across some 130 countries. And the aim of the Brahma Kumaris is basically to give tools that we can use in our everyday lives because, as you know, in this day in life, things can be very challenging, people can be very difficult, very stubborn, and so we need to find some inner resolve, inner tools that will help us to overcome that. So really it's about equipping you with the necessary tools, and it's up to you. It's your choice whether you want to use them or not. But I've noticed from my own experience, and I have to say it's going to be 20 years in July that I have been a student of the Brahma Kumaris, and so that's a milestone for me. And it only seems like yesterday that I came to them. So the Brahma Kumaris is now over sort of 9,000 centers, and it was established from very humble beginnings by Brahma Baba, and really you'll find a lot more and hear a lot more about Brahma Baba tonight. In 1937, he officially established what became the Brahma Kumaris in Karachi, which is now part of Pakistan. And then from a gathering of 300, they move over to our spiritual headquarters in Mount Abu. And from then, it started to serve the people of Bharat. And then, or Bharat, as you know, is commonly known as India. And then from India, in the early 1970s, service started to grow abroad. And how it has grown exponentially. And now you'll find centers practically all over the world. And it's so comforting when you go to so many places and you hear the word Om Shanti. Is that nice? Do you feel that? Can you say Om Shanti? Let me hear it again. Om Shanti. Wow. So it sort of resonates inside that we're all very peaceful and very loving beings. Okay. Now, there's a lot of things that I've learned with the Brahma Kumaris, and I continue to learn many things today, and I will continue to learn many things tomorrow and the day after that. But there's one thing that I've learned is that everybody has a speciality. And if we use those specialities in our daily lives, it becomes a talent. And our first performer tonight, Lucinda, is overflowing with talent. And she's used those specialities of her singing voices, writing such wonderful lyrics, composing some wonderful songs. And tonight, we are very fortunate that she is going to perform 2 songs now, and she will also perform a further song later on in the evening. So without further ado, I would invite Lucinda onto the stage.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Lucinda Drayton, and as I was standing out the back reflecting on my journey with the Brahma Kumaris, I was remembering my very first introduction to meditation. I found myself in a strange little place in the middle of nowhere. This wasn't Brahma Kumaris, by the way, with a friend of mine when we were about 18. And we did this walking meditation that went like this for hours on end. And I just remember thinking, I'm really bored. What we're doing, I've paid for this weekend and we're walking in a circle round and round like that. And I couldn't stop giggling because it seemed really ridiculous and funny to me. I mean, you know, not that walking meditation is ridiculous now, I enjoy it. And then I came across a very small house in Slough, and I walked into this little very ordinary house in a back street in Slough where they taught meditation for free. And I sat down and there was something very different going on, and there was a vibration that was palpable, and I had a very powerful experience in my first few lessons of just experiencing myself as separate from the body, as something very different than just this. I think it was a gift. I don't think that was from my particular talents at meditation. I think that was a gift, and it certainly hooked me, and here I am many years later still learning, still sitting, still reaping the benefits of that practice of just going inside and remembering that there is something inside which is much more powerful, more truthful, more beautiful than I ever thought or imagined I could be. So my first song is called Thank You for all of it. And actually this relates slightly to Sister Genti, who you're going to be hearing from later. Because I remember Sister Genti giving me this piece of advice many, many years ago when I was going through quite a big challenge in my life. And I said, how do I let go? I don't know how to let go of the past. I couldn't let it go. I was hanging on, telling the story, going over and over and over. And she said, the way to heal the past is to give thanks. So this song is called Thank You. It's all the things I'm thankful for. Trail of petals, a path of seeds, a blackbird song, a Christmas scene, logs on the fire, the end of May, the sun rising over Whitsun Bay, my mother's arms, my father's advice, your bad jokes and the way you smile, the way you touch me, the love in your eyes, the sadness I feel when you say goodbye. Thank you for all of it, the ups and the downs, good times, the bad times, the sights and the sounds. Thank you for all of it, the hurt and the fight, the loves and the losses, the coming into the light. Taken for granted the gifts of life, the in-breath, the out-breath, the hope and the strife, the sun in the evening, God on my tongue, the knowing, the believing, the songs I've sung. Thank you for all of it, the ups and the downs, the good times, the bad times, the sights and the sounds. Thank you for all of it, the hurt and the fight, the loves and the laughter, the coming into the light. And each little moment recorded in time, repeated forever down through each life. The hurt and the present are rolled into one, this beautiful pattern in the great undone. Thank you for all of it, the hurt and the fight, the good times, the bad times, the sights and the the losses, the coming into the light. Thank you for the day, for the night, for the hurt and the fight, for the loves, for the losses, for who I am and who I will become. For the love, for the love, for the love, for the love, for the Thank you. So I suppose in the end it's about becoming thankful for all of it, for all the ups and the downs, the good times and the bad times, and for the lessons that we learn on the way. And the second song I'm going to sing, I'm going to dedicate to Brahma Baba, who's the teacher of all this knowledge that we're working with here, and the meditation practice that so serves us and the rest of the world at times. And this song is actually not my song, wish it was, but it's not. It's written by a man called Sting. You may have heard of him. Many of you heard of him? Quite well known. And this song's called Fields of Gold. And the reason I recorded this is because in many spiritual traditions there's a remembrance of a time of perfection or a time of harmony. We call it Satyug, the age of truth. And Fields of Gold reminds me of that there will be a time when we'll walk in fields of gold. So I hope you enjoy this and the rest of the evening. You remember me when the west wind moves among the fields in Bali, and you can tell the sun in his jealous sky when we walked in fields of gold. So she took her love for to gaze a while among the fields of Bali. In his arms she fell as her hair came down among the fields of gold. Will you stay with me? Will you be my love among the fields of Bali? And you can tell the sun in this jealous sky when we walked in fields of gold. I never take promises lightly, and there have been some that I've broken, but I swear in the days still left, we'll walk in fields of gold. We'll walk in fields of gold. I never make promises lightly. There have been some that I've broken, but I swear in the days still left, we'll walk in fields of gold. We'll walk in can tell the sun in its jealous sky when we walked in fields of gold? When we walked in fields of gold. When we walked in fields of gold. Om Shanti, thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Lucinda, has she got talent? She's got talent. And she uses such in a right way. Now, the Brahma Kumaris is like a global superstore. And in this superstore, we give all our products free of charge. There's Raj Yoga meditation, positive thinking, stress-free living, so many courses for so many individuals. And if you like the product, you come back and you buy it, you take some more. And sometimes you can experiment. You take what you want, and if it doesn't work, put it back, and you take something else. If there's something that doesn't work, leave it. But you can always experiment with it. But the one thing I've experienced is that I come and taste this product every day. And it's had such a profound impact on my life. That's all I talk about. But I don't talk it in a way that people can't understand. I connect with people on a very much at their level. So it makes it very practical. And now we have 3 super individuals, brave individuals, who have kindly come forward to share their experiences of how they've tasted the products of the Brahma Kumaris and how they use them in their everyday lives.
Hello, everyone. I've got a very short experience just to share. I want to tell you what I was like before I was doing meditation, because I came into it quite young. I was probably about 10 or 12. And what I was like before was a real bad boy. And I was this close to being kicked out of school. I remember my parents had to come into school and they had a meeting with the head teacher and said, look, Vishal, he's constantly messing about, he's misbehaving, he just jokes around in class, he never concentrates. And so this, even at the meeting, I wasn't concentrating, I wasn't paying attention. It was just something within me, I just couldn't focus. I couldn't ever concentrate or take things in. And it was only when I went on a retreat in Oxford where we had a meditative experience with a group. It was only then where I had that kind of moment where you think, oh, you know what, I actually understand this now. It makes sense. And there was an experience. And I think it was that meditative experience that really helped me throughout my life. And I think meditation has helped me so many times, even during university, when there's so many things to learn, remember, working in a group. One of my friends is here today. And all these things you've got to do. And, you know, I really used the meditation to help me as much as I could. And, you know, I used to meditate in the mornings and evenings. And it helped me just to absorb more information. It helped me to build good relationships with lecturers, with fellow students, and achieved a good result in the end, a first class in accounting and finance, which I know for a fact I would not have done if it wasn't for the meditation. So thank you everyone.
My name's Marie. The microphone's working then. And I have my own business now as a result of some positive thinking and some self-empowerment that's happened to me over the past 4 years. And I've been meditating for 4 years now. My mum said I always come alive on stage, so I hope this happens. Aged 11, this is what I wrote. If this life I live is but a play, then the world must be my stage, and every day that passes by is in fact another page. It's a take on many things that have been written. But I think from an early age, I kind of had an inkling that I was more than this physical body stood in front of you. But I just didn't quite understand how to articulate that and to put that across. I joined a disciplined organisation where the rules were set out, but I always felt a bit like a puppet on a string, that people were dictating to me how I should and shouldn't behave, and that I'd kind of handed power over to other people about my emotions and thoughts. That wasn't until one day when, shortly after my half-brother passed and left this world, that I was sat in a positive thinking course led by Natalie, who is out there somewhere today. And she asked the question of, who am I? The answer my mother gave broke my heart, I have to say. But it also opened my mind to soul awareness. And all of a sudden, I had started to have answers that I knew were out there. And I started to have some clarity over things I had thought and felt for a number of years. So for me, positive action and doing things with purity and love always felt like the right thing to do. Through school, I would sort of offer a place to the girl that was bullied in my tent, and I had Mother Teresa as a role model as an 8-year-old when we played a balloon game, and I would justify why she should be kept in. When I acted with authenticity and lived that way, I always felt more true to who I really was. So I started on a journey, and that's where I am now and where I've been today, and where I still continue to learn and meditate. I was sat again in a lesson with Natalie, and the tree of life came up. For some of you, you will know this, and for some of you, you are yet to experience. And it shook me a little, and I was sort of stood in tears. And then Natalie said to consider yourself as the roots to that tree. And that was my aha moment of my duty, if you like, to live with purity and love and to give back to the world. And meditation no longer became a selfish indulgence of mine, which I thought before is I'm taking myself off to do this and why should I be doing this for myself. It actually became necessary and a part of my life, which I build in every day, and I try to meditate at least twice a day now, and I do this at home and then retouch back in the centres to re-engage and connect with people, and that's why I'm stood here in front of you today. So now, through that path, I've been able to have a little bit of clarity over that question of who am I, and I will continue to learn and grow, and hopefully you will too. Om Shanti.
Thank you to 3 wonderful souls for opening their hearts out to everyone. Now, when you have a product and it really tastes good, what do you like to do? You like to share it with others. And that's how the majority of souls that come to us is through word of mouth, because they see the change. They're not interested in words. They're not interested in information. They want to see, how has it helped you in a practical life? So how did this organization start? How this seed was planted? Well, in this next video that we're going to show you for 10 minutes, this will show the lifetimes of Brahma Baba. Brahma Baba was a wealthy jeweler. He came from very humble beginnings, and he started his diamond business, and he became a multimillionaire by today's standards. But like many of us, he had many questions. Who am I? Who is God? What is the purpose of life? And then one day, the truth just hit him. And boy, did he just realize, I have to reveal this truth to the whole world. So he surrendered his business. He sold his business, and he surrendered his business to a board of trustees, what became eventually the Brahma Kumaris. And so this video will sort of give you an insight of how from very humble beginnings the organization has gone global. Thank you. I'll repeat that because the microphone has just come back on. I hope that video gave you a flavor of what the Brahma Kumari is about. And the one thing that we learn is that our actions speak louder than words. And that's the legacy that Brahma Baba left, was that he led by example. His personality, his behavior, and the way he served was always through actions. And that was revealed in the happiness. And that colored the people that were around him. And many of those people were at a very young age. And you saw in the clips over there how they've gone on to become great leaders. And this is a wonderful organization in that it's one of the rare organizations in the world that's actually administered by females. Isn't that fantastic? Although founded by a male, it's actually administered by females. And I see the humility amongst all the sort of seniors is unbelievable. It's so inspiring. And one of the people that we're inspired a lot today is Sister Genti. Sister Genti was first introduced to the Brahma Kumaris at the age of 8. But she really only did the course when she was 18 in 1968. And in the space of a month, having turned 19, she made a conscious decision to surrender her life to serving the world by practicing Raj Yoga. Now, the things that we like about Sister Genti, it's not that she's just a prolific author or she's a wonderful speaker and she gives wonderful classes all over the world. It's that it's her personality. And there's a few things that really stand out for me, why I see her as a wonderful role model of what Raj Yoga is one, she has clarity. 2, she has cleanliness. 3, she has courage. 4, she has consistency. And 5, she has commitment. And she never wavers. And for that reason, I think Sister Genti is a wonderful sort of ambassador of the Brahma Kumaris, where she travels the world, and just her persona exemplifies what the Brahma Kumaris is about. So I would now ask Sister Genti to come on stage and share her experience and insight about Brahma Baba.
Good evening and Om Shanti. It's beautiful to see this full house and beautiful shining faces in front of me. January is a special month because it brings back not just the memories but also the awareness of all the gifts that Brahma Baba has given to us. And when I was asked about the title of this program, I thought about this particular title, and it came about because some time ago, Dadi Janki, who you saw in some of the photographs, is now 99, and it's amazing that she has traveled from India to be with us in London just a few days ago. Can you imagine traveling age 99? And about 9 years ago, when she was 90, a couple of people decided that they would like to do interviews with her on the subject of greatness. And one of the things that we were talking about when we were looking at the subject of greatness was, you know, there can be a person who's very good, a person who's great. But how many people are there who are actually able to impart greatness to others and make others great also? Not many. And when Dadi was interviewed, she was talking about greatness and making and inspiring other people to become great. And she used a very interesting concept. She said that what Brahma Baba has done has been to create a community of greatness. And just think about that word, a community of greatness. And it made me very much appreciate what Brahma Baba had done. And she put it in the context of other world leaders who themselves have been amazingly great, but then they haven't been able to instill that seed of greatness in those who have followed them. And she was thinking in particular about two political leaders, and India and in Africa. And after them, the legacy has been just a memory. It hasn't been left behind in practical experience of people's lives. And yet, Brahma Baba passed away 46 years ago now. It's a long time. 46 years is a long time. And I was very, very fortunate that when I was 8, I had the opportunity to meet him. And then through my teenage years, again, the opportunity to meet him. And maybe one of the aspects of greatness was that even though I wasn't interested in meditation through my teenage years, yet the love that he shared and the wisdom that he imparted wasn't looking at me at that present moment. It was looking at something that was there within the soul that he could nurture and sustain and allow to flourish later on. When there's greatness within an individual and the power and the capacity to be able to share that greatness and inspire others to the same, then there's a great humility about them, in which with children they become children, with young people they become young, and with the mature then they're wise. And so Brahma Baba very much like this, even though as a child when I met him, he was just very warm and loving, and that's it, just an amazing power of attraction. But later, as I was growing and he could see that my interest was in things out there, yet still the love continued, but not only continued, he would share with me great wisdom all along the journey. And his insight was that if young people could be nurtured spiritually, then the seeds that were sown in them would allow greatness to develop and emerge. But also, one particular story that I'd like to share that gives you an idea of how Brahma Baba always led by example. Let me share that. It was a night when Baba would take class in the morning and class in the evening. Spiritual university, we come together to study. And so we called it a class and not satsang, but it was a time to come together to learn and grow and develop. And at the end of the class, it was the month of August because it was school holidays in London. And so that was a time we would always go on holiday to India. And the month of August in Abu was cold and it was raining. It was the monsoon period. And after the night class, Baba asked the sister in charge of the kitchen, would you be able to make lapsi for breakfast for tomorrow morning? A particular grain, cracked wheat, I think it is, I'm not sure. But very delicious when it's cooked as porridge and sweet and very warm for the soul and body. And so Baba asked her if she had the grains to be able to make that. And she smiled, and from her smile, Baba could see that she didn't want to say no, but she wasn't able to say yes either. And Baba said to her, okay, what you do is to get the sack and put it outside, and after the class, then Baba's going to come along, put some trays out there also. And the class finished about 10 o'clock. It usually used to be from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. And Baba then, instead of walking across the courtyard to his room from the hall, Baba walked across to the place where he had asked the sister to keep the sack of grain. And, of course, the Pied Piper so we all followed. Wherever Baba would go, we would be following to share that love, that wisdom, whatever it is Baba would be sharing. And we followed, and Baba picked up a tray, and in that there were lots of grains, and he started to clean it. And of course, the dozen people who were around, one of them took the tray and they started to do that. Baba took another tray, another hand came forth and took that tray. And 12 trays were all being cleaned simultaneously. And within half an hour, the whole sack of grain was cleaned. And it was then sent to be milled. We had our own mill there. And the next morning, we were able to have that lapsi, that sweet porridge, made in a very delicious way with a lot of love. That's just one tiny little example of how Baba made it all happen. If you tell somebody, do something, they may or they may not. And why should they? But if you do something yourself, and you've been able to inspire respect and love in the hearts of others, then they're going to come forward and help you and do the same also, so that you're never left alone doing something just by yourself. But there'll be lots of hands of cooperation that will come forth, and things will happen very naturally and easily. And so with his humility, with his ability just simply to be a server, Baba was able to inspire cooperation from the hearts of others, and so many would come together and help in whatever it was that was needed. So one of the comments that I've heard around the end of the 20th century from Peter Senge was interesting. We were at a conference in San Francisco. It was a conference, the World Leaders Forum, and in that Peter Senge said, one of the qualities that will be needed for leaders in the 21st century will be humility. And I was seeing humility being demonstrated by Baba at all times in the 20th century, but also an example for all of us in the 21st century now. The start of Brahma Baba and the journey that he undertook and has inspired all of us to follow, you could summarize it in 3 words, and I'll share the Hindi words and explain their meaning. Tyag, renunciation; tapasya, intense meditation; and seva, service. When there's intense meditation, that ability to focus on the One Supreme and to be able to draw power from that One, and not just power but all attributes from the Source, that is only really possible when an individual has decided that this is the most important thing in their life and they've been able to renounce all other things. The word renunciation sounds like a harsh word, a difficult word. But in fact, when there's a spirit of love, then automatically renunciation happens. Think about a mother, and many mothers sitting here, and I'm sure it also applies to fathers, but you generally see mothers in this particular role. When a child is sick, then does a mother count how many nights she's been staying awake? How many times she's had to adjust her meal times to suit the infant or the child? It's not even a factor to consider. You just do it, and you're doing it out of love. You don't even count it as renunciation or sacrifice. It's there within you. You do what is needed at that moment. But yet, if one were to look at it from an outside perspective, then one would say it's a hard life. Somebody sent me in a very interesting little video clip a couple of months ago, and it might have been viral, and so some of you may have seen it. But this person was interviewing people, and you saw people being interviewed, and most of them were women. And the person would say, the interviewer, it's a tough job that I'm offering, but the rewards are great. And the job is one that's 24/7, 365. And are you willing to take it on? And I'll explain more about the job if you say yes. And he went on to explain that it's going to need constant attention. It's going to need a state in which you don't put yourself first, in which you put others first. And he went on in this way. And the faces of those people kept changing, just amazement. And then they said, well, what is this job? And he said, well, you're actually doing it already. A job is to be the mother. And my point that mothers do this all the time, and they don't count it, they don't consider it to be sacrifice. In the same way, at the moment that Brahma Baba decided that his mission was to be an instrument for the divine, and he was going to surrender his life to be able to serve the world, and it was out of love for God and love for humanity that he would do this, he didn't think, well, how is it going to be possible? He'd had a vision of a better world, and that vision was so powerful that he knew that he had to be an instrument for this. And together with that, he had a question. Well, how was he going to do it? I've seen a beautiful new world. I've seen that, yes, it's going to come. It's a possibility. It's going to be a reality. I have to be an instrument, but how will I do it? And it took him a lifetime to see how the how unfolded and developed. But at that moment, he renounced everything just instantly. And think about it today. Here's a person who by then has come to the achievement of their life, the final period of their life of work. They've earned the respect of the whole community. They've been able to achieve a great deal in terms of physical accomplishment. And suddenly, this person is inspired to surrender everything to a group of young women, including a 14-year-old, Dadi Prakash Muni, who became the head of the organization later. But a 14-year-old and others, maybe 16, maybe 15, it was all young women. But Dadi Prakash Muni didn't have a bank account. She didn't know how to write a check, and she'd never handled money. And yet something from above was inspiring him and was telling him that this is what he had to do. And he followed that guidance of the One. And so his surrender was not a surrender to human beings, but it was a surrender to the divine. And following the call of the divine, he understood that he had to surrender on that external physical level all he had to this group of young women. And very much part of that guidance and inspiration was that it was going to be through women that a better world was going to come. And it's quite amazing that he should have had this guidance in 1937. Some of you know the conditions of women in India today, but just imagine the conditions of women in that subcontinent, what is today Pakistan, in the 30s. Very little education and no role in society. They weren't able to make decisions for themselves. It was either their father, or if the father didn't happen to be around, their brother, their elder brother, sometimes even a younger brother, but also their husband later, and that's it. There was no moment through their life journey in which they were expected to have the capacity to be able to make decisions for themselves. And the guidance was it's going to be through women. And the incredible quality of faith in which he trusted that guidance is something that's quite amazing. And so he went through all of this, and the reason why he understood that it was going to be through women was twofold. One was that it was the feminine aspect that was needed for the future, and the nurture and sustenance of a spiritual nature would happen through women more easily than anyone. But also that if there was to be a better world, it had to be a world of equality and justice. And so the big inequality that existed had to be sorted out. And it could only be balanced when there was affirmative action. Today we would call it affirmative action. He didn't know the words at that time, but that's what he did. He gave women that extra opportunity to become teachers and leaders. So it was a very conscious thing that he did at that time. And even today, I think in the world, there isn't a spiritual organization that caters for men and women, and yet has women at the leadership role. And so guidance from above was something that was absolutely constantly with him. And the guidance that was coming was, on the one level, purely spiritual in nature, giving a deeper and deeper understanding of the nature of the soul and God, but it was also very practical in terms of instruction. We're having fun and games with microphones today. Maybe I think I'll just take the mic in my hands, okay?
Sorry about this.
Let me just take it in my hands.
Sure. It's a bit better.
Sure.
It's much better.
Okay, we're together again. Greatness also has faith. Greatness also has vision. And so these three things I've been sharing: Brahma Baba, the humility, the faith, the vision, but the renunciation. Until the end of Brahma Baba's days, and by then he was 93, and if some of you have been to Mount Abu, but some I hope will have the opportunity to go, the original building that they had in Pandav Bhavan in the 50s, they came from Karachi to Abu, and they were in another building in a place called Bridge Koti, and then Kota House. But then the third building they had, this is the property where still everything continues, the original campus. And that building, the only building on that particular land, was a stable. And the stable was converted into a place of residence, but also the office and the hall where Baba would speak. And until the end of the days, Baba's decided to stay just simply in the stables. Didn't stay in all the other buildings that you have around. I think you saw various photographs of Mount Abu. And now there's 3 campuses. The original one, Pandav Bhavan, and there we have accommodation, I think, for about 600 people. Then the second one, the Academy for a Better World, Gyan Sarovar, accommodation for about 1,000. And then downstairs, the bottom of the mountain, accommodation for 20,000. You can just see the way the tree has been growing. But he stayed in this one particular room, and not even a big room, a room that was literally just a fraction of the size of the stage. And that room is now a meditation room. And when people come into the courtyard, and I've known people who didn't know the layout or anything, and they didn't know this term, Baba's room, but they look around the courtyard and then they say, "What's there?" And I ask them, "Why do you ask?" And they say, "There seems to be a special energy, a special light coming from that particular place." And it's true. The power in that room is tangible even today. And Baba's intense renunciation and then the intense meditation, I would see Baba through his final period, when I got to know him really with an understanding of who he is, was 1968, his last year in the physical form. And when I would see Baba, it would be literally as if there was no moment that he wasn't in contact with the divine. The human soul and the divine being, it was like both were together all the time. And you could see the light that was radiating from his face. You know how old people tend to forget things. They become a little different in the way they look and in the way they walk. Well, Brahma Baba, nothing like that. The power of the divine wasn't just a spiritual power, but the power of the divine was such that he didn't wear spectacles until the end of his days. And people didn't quite believe it. They said to Baba, "Baba, have you had your eyes tested?" Because they thought that, maybe in the days that Baba was younger, nobody bothered to go for eyesight testing in India. Those things came later. And so they thought that maybe he never had his eyes tested. And Baba would look at them and say, "Why do you ask, child?" And so they'd say, "Baba, just want to test your eyes to see if they're okay." And to humor the child, and I don't mean, Baba uses the word child for adults also, because he was anyway like a father figure, grandfather. And so Baba would say, "Okay, just to humor the child, yes, why not? You can test my eyes." Baba's teeth were his own, and Baba's eyes were fine right till the end of his days. So the physical form, Baba didn't sit on a chair, except just for meals. The rest of the time, Baba would sit on this gaddi, this little space on the floor, and he would sit semi-lotus posture, upright, no backrest, no nothing, but just simply absolutely alert, comfortable, and would sit like that for hours. And Baba's intellect, we hear the murlis that were spoken through Brahma Baba, and really it was not just this man speaking, but it was the power that was working through him that was making things happen. And we're amazed at how profound they are and how much we're able to take from them even today. And it was just the last 5 years of his period in this world that we hear those murlis, because the earlier murlis, it was a gradual introduction to all these concepts and ideas. But that last period, the concepts were pretty clear, and so these are the things that we study today. And Baba's talking about insights into the state of the world. How many had thought about environmental pollution at that time in the early 60s? No one that I know of, not even in the West. The first environmental book that was written was in 1966, The Silent Spring by Rachel Carson's. But prior to that, nobody was thinking about the environment. It was just a resource that we were taking from continually, and we thought it was inexhaustible. It would always be there. The earth would always be giving to us, and you could take as much as you wanted. But Baba at that time was talking about the earth and how humans have been plundering the resources of the earth and polluting the earth, and how earth and the elements are going to need to be redressed so that then there's balance brought back. And there's an expression that Baba used, and it comes up in the Murlis as we study them. The elements have become angry. And when you think about what's happening in the world today, you can see how graphic that image is and how accurate it is. So right until the end of that physical life, Baba's intellect absolutely sharp and clear and able to share with us amazing wisdom. So it just all goes to indicate that that power of tapasya, the intense meditation that Baba was practicing, that union with the divine, was so powerful that it had its effect not just on the spiritual development of the soul, but also on so many external things. And the service that has happened through Brahma Baba, the seeds of greatness that Baba has sown in people who have now become instruments to serve the world. And you can see how communities of greatness have developed. As I was sitting here, we were just having a very brief conversation earlier, and what we were talking about was how the Leicester Centre started. And it started in a family home, and the family is here, and you know them, Babu Bhai and his family. And that inspiration, that vision that Baba had shared, that vision is something that has touched the hearts of others. And so that vision is something that's inspiring all of us today to have that same renunciation, the same tapasya, and to be able to serve with the same humility and that vision that, yes, it's time to change the world and make the world a better place. I want to share one other personal story, and that was when, age 19, and I'd decided that this is to be my life, and I'd come to Abu, and I was meeting with Baba, and Baba asked me, "Child, what would you like to say?" And I said I wanted to surrender. And Baba then reminded me that a few years earlier, when I had no idea of spirituality, Baba had said to me, "You're going to be a spiritual teacher." And so Baba said, "Child, I knew it already." And the memory returned of what Baba had said. But then further, in a very sweet conversation in that same time when I was there in Abu, Baba asked me the question, "Child," Baba constantly used this word, child or sweet child, and just to give us that feeling of warmth, of closeness. Yes, Baba was a brilliant teacher, and although he was teaching, but it was in that mode of mother and father, not just father even, but very much also a mother with that care and compassion and concern. So Baba said, "Child, is it possible to have a world free from sorrow?" And I waited for Baba to reply, and he said, "Yes, it's possible." is it possible to have a world free from illness? And Baba said, yes, it's possible. Is it possible to have a world free from hunger? Yes, it's possible. And Baba then went on to say, all of these things are possible. It's possible to have a world in which there's no hunger, no disease, and no pain or suffering. But it'll only happen when people have been able to let go of their lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego. And you can't tell anyone to do this. You have to do it yourself. And if you do this, then you'll be able to inspire others to do the same. And that is how we can create a better world. And that was 1968. And when I'd shared these ideas with others when I came back to England, after having stayed in India taking training and so on, I came back again in June 1969, and nobody was interested, but that's okay. But over the years, there's been a gradual change. And one of the most significant moments for me was when, in the year 2000, at the Millennium Peace Summit at the UN, and you were seeing various photographs of Dadi at the UN and so on. But Dadi was one of the speakers and leaders invited to that particular summit, Dadi Janki, and I happened to be part of her delegation. And there was a particular gathering in which it was Assistant Secretary Generals, Under Secretary Generals, who headed up all the different departments of the UN. Environment, population, children, health, you name it, and they were there. And their discussion was about the fact that although the UN had more resources, both in terms of money and people and information, yet they hadn't been able to reverse the ills of the world. Things had gone gradually worse and worse and worse, and we see the reality of that today. Even now, 15 years later, it's still downhill. It hasn't gone up. And within their discussions, what they realized was that it was only going to be possible to change things. It wasn't all these resources that were going to create the world and create peace in the world. It was only going to be possible to change things around when human hearts were touched. And they said that this is why we've called the spiritual and religious leaders together. And it's the first time that that had happened in the history of the UN, that these people had been brought together. We brought them together because we know that these are the people who will touch human hearts, and through that there can be a transformation. And so Baba telling me that, yes, it's through the change of human beings that a better world can come. And now I'm hearing it at the UN. And so I'm seeing that the things that Baba has shown us, the things that have been set out for us to follow in our lives today, what we are doing today, Baba had predicted would be happening, but also the conditions of the world and how to be able to change the conditions of the world, again, are all the things that Baba's been talking about. One last thing that I want to talk about is meditation. Through all the different teachings that Baba has been giving us, Baba has always said there's one message which is the most important. And that message is the understanding of the self and the understanding of God, so that every human soul can again connect with God and experience its birthright of peace, purity, and love from the divine. And the beautiful thing for me to see now is how subjects like mindfulness, meditation, relaxation. These are the subjects that have come into mainstream. There was an article that somebody sent me from the New York Times of a couple of days ago, and it was describing the scene at Davos at the World Economic Forum. And the article states that one particular session was a session on meditation, and people who were there, the person leading the session said to them, "Have you ever taken the time to look at the beauty of the place that you're in? Or are you just looking at each other to see who do I next meet to network with?" And of course, Switzerland, a beautiful place, but people focused on networking. Another question to them was, well, do you know what is the power of the mind and how it's possible to harness the power of the mind? Or are you just interested in all the technology and the gadgets that you have around you? And so it was very interesting that the New York Times then stated that it's just an indication that things like meditation and mindfulness are now part of the mainstream. And here was Baba telling us for many, many years, the most important thing to let human beings become aware of is the awareness of the self and the connection with the divine. So my feeling at this moment is that the seeds that Baba has planted, not just in one community, but it's a worldwide community, and it's a community that's ever expanding. It doesn't have any limits, and all of you are part of that community. And so the seeds of greatness are there within every human being. But as we connect with the divine, we allow that seed to flourish and blossom. And so together, definitely we can make the world a better place. We can change the world, but it has to be through revealing our own inner goodness and greatness. And then, yes, the world can be a very beautiful place again. And Baba's vision can be realized in a very practical way. Thank you for your attention. And what I'd like us to do now is to have some time together in meditation. Sitting quietly. I reflect on the things that I've been hearing. The goodness inherent within every human soul. I connect with the goodness within the self. Going inwards, and coming to that inner space of stillness, of silence, a place of peace. And in this place of peace, I discover the treasures that I carry within myself. Love, truth, purity, and joy. And in this awareness of peace within myself, I can feel the presence of the divine. And I, the soul, connect with the Supreme Soul, the being of light, the one who is the benefactor, the one who is the seed of the human tree, the creator, Shiva, the being of light. I realize that as I detach from the consciousness of the body, it is this first step of renunciation that allows me to make this connection. I, the soul, the incorporeal, the light, connecting with the incorporeal supreme, the light. And in this union of soul with God, the power of love that flows from the ocean surrounds me. Love that transforms me. Love that uplifts me. Love that empowers me. Love that heals me so that I can let go of the past and become free. Able to forgive and forget and find myself again. And the power of God's love reaches out into the world, touching human souls, awakening souls, inspiring hope in human hearts. And the power of love transforms not only humans but all within this world, even the elements of nature, so that humans can live together with love, and humans and nature are able to live together in harmony. And the power of God's love creates a better world.
Lucinda, please come forward. Lucinda, thank you for that wonderful song. We're always very grateful for the people who respond to these type of events, and as you appreciate and realize it's all done by an army of volunteers. So I'd just like to give, on your behalf and Harmony House's behalf, some thank yous. Firstly to Sister Genty. Now you may not be aware, but she is really committed to whatever she does. She came from Manchester this morning, and straight after this evening program, she has to leave from Leicester to London because she has some other engagements, you know. So that's amazing, you know. There was a point we weren't even sure if Sister Genty was going to come because she was based in India at the time. But once she has given her word, that's it. She can't go back. So thank you, Sister Genty. Lucinda, what can we say about Lucinda? Fantastic singing, fantastic songs, and you can buy her albums and Sister Genty's books downstairs in the bookshop. We'd like to thank the 3 special souls. Sally, Marie, Vishal, where are you, Vishal? Okay, Vishal over there. Thank you for having the courage to share. And I would like to thank all the army of volunteers that are very incognito who've given their time and dedication to make this program happen. But I would also like to thank you for your wonderful support, and we hope that we can count your support for many future events and programs. And it's almost like we're just a family that keeps on growing and growing and growing. And I don't know where it's going to go, but maybe we'll have a global family. Everybody will become a member of this global family. But if you want to take part in future events or want to take advantage of some of our free courses, then we have a What's On guide. On there are some details of Raj Yoga meditation, positive thinking, stress-free living, overcoming anger, and many, many more events and seminars that we've arranged. And don't forget, all our products are free, except for the bookshop, by the way. You do have to pay for them. And I'm sure some of you have come because you have been touched by your friends and families of their lives changing experiences. And you too will go away from today and thinking, I want some of this. So you have a choice now. You can either go back home and forget this day ever happened, or you can take a step of courage and say, you know what? I'm going to change. I'm going to be the example that I see in others, and let me leave my legacy so that people talk about me as well. Okay? So before we finish, we have one last thing to do. We are going to give some special toli. It's a gift. It's a sweet. We all love the sweetness of virtues, and we appreciate that because we always say they are so sweet, but we also like the sweetness of the tongue. So Sister Genty has kindly offered to give this toli and blessings, and I would kindly request that you follow the instructions of the ushers who will guide row by row to take toli and blessings from Sister Genty, and also once you've taken your toli and blessings is to leave either of the aisles and leave the auditorium. Thank you very much. Sister Genty. Just one more reminder, there's a Shivratri program that we're putting on. The flyers have literally come hot off the press, 15th of February. So the program will be in Hindi, but translation will be provided to those who do not understand Hindi into English. Om Shanti.